What is up, guys? Joel, Black.Death.Thrash.Doom. Time for my top 10 list of 2020. Top 10 albums from last year. I don't care what the hell happens with this video. I'm putting this one out. My God, I've had so many technical issues. This was supposed to come out New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. I was supposed to record it, edit it, put it out. I got incredibly sick, ended up in the hospital, ended up in urgent care the next day. I'm better for the most part now, but it really put a monkey wrench in what I was trying to do, get the list out, and I didn't listen to the albums for like a couple weeks. I was too sick to even want to listen to music, so I had to go back and listen to everything again, reaffirm everything in my head, and now I'm going to show you guys this, and we're going to start off fairly quickly. Please like, comment, subscribe. Leave a comment down below what your favorite albums of 2022 were. That would be amazing. We're just going to start off right away with Anti-Creation. We've got From the Dust of Embers. These guys were a surprise. This is a Greek black death band that is simultaneously amazing and frightening. They are really, really fucking good. They came out of nowhere for me. I believe this is their only album, though they do have a video for one of the songs on here. And this is just terrifying black death metal. Great vocals. And just very heavy, pounding ass shit, very mid-paced to fast, and just absolutely crushing in scope and execution. And I really like the usage of toms with the drums in this. There's just like detonations, just explosions all the time in between walls of absolute terror and noise, and it is absolutely great. If you like oppressive black death metal and you've never heard of Anti-Creation, I hadn't. Like I said, I think this is their only album. They're from Greece. You gotta check this out. Anti-Creation is fucking great, and for a first album, it is a damn good start, especially to end up on my top 10 list. There was a lot of death metal this year. Okay, the second album on my top 10 list, and these are in no order at all, but my second album on this list is just an amazing journey that is violent and crazy and cosmic and atmospheric and just dizzying in what is presented here. Is Bluedos Nord's Disharmonium, Undreamable Abysses. That typeset is really small for that second part of the title, but Bluedos Nord, amazing, amazing stuff. French band, and yes, they play black metal, but it's just very cosmic and crazy. You kind of don't know what you're going to get with Bluedos Nord albums, because some of their albums, like the Memoria Vetusta albums, are a lot more atmospheric black metal and very epic and majestic sounding with thinner black metal production, whereas something like this is disturbing and dark and just sounds like something that came from the depths of space itself. Bluedos Nord's new album is just a dissonant journey of craziness. I like how the vocals are kind of subdued, and in the background, like somebody's screaming from across the cosmos. It's just amazing shit. The art on this album is another thing, too. I mean, just the whole presentation, everything about this album is incredible. If you're not familiar with Bluedos Nord, this is actually a great place to start, but it would be a weird place to start. This is definitely a weird and crazy album, but it is a journey, and a damn good one at that. Definitely deserves to be on this top 10 list. Okay, next on the list is Cosmic Putrefaction from Italy. Now, I wasn't able to score a copy of this album yet. I'm hoping to very soon. But Cosmic Putrefaction's newest album, yes, I have notes over here. In case you're wondering why I'm looking over here, I can't remember all of this. But Cosmic Putrefaction's from Italy, and their new album, Crepuscular Dirge for the Blessed Ones, assuming that's how you pronounce that first word. I have no idea what that first word means. But the new album is incredible. This is their third album. And so far, I've liked everything from this band. They're a little bit hard to describe, but they're kind of crushing, kind of dissonant death metal at the same time. There's a lot of crazy stuff in this album. There's occasional, like, while brutality is going on, there'll be occasional, like, acoustic guitar strums. And the vocals are varied. They go from dripping, dark, dank death metal to more of a mid-range growl. And yeah, it's pretty good stuff. They have like off-kilter dissonant riffs. They're speedy. They're catchy. I have to look at my notes here. But yeah, nice effects on the vocals. And I would say this would be fans of like Gorguts and Suffocation, maybe Ulcerate, but at the same time they sound like none of those bands. Kind of hard to describe. Fairly technical, but always memorable and catchy, and something that I just find myself going back to all the time. Italy's Cosmic Putrefaction with Crepuscular Dirge for the Blessed Ones. Highly recommended. Really good if you just like kind of off-kilter, but very well done and well produced death metal. Okay, for the next album, let's move on to something a little less scary, a little less frightening, and a little more folky, black, almost doom with Black Braid. Now, Black Braid is a dude that was supposedly raised by Native Americans. I don't know if he's actually Native himself, but that's good enough for me. He writes excellent music. This is like a mix of folky black metal a la Agalloch mixed with really good, speedier black metal. Something like Uwada, actually. Sometimes sounds like Uwada, but better. Better composed, better musicianship coming from one dude. But Black Braid is really an interesting project, and it kind of crept out of nowhere, and the dude seems kind of cool and humble. He's like, wow, a lot of people really like this album. He's like, that's really cool. And he seems like he's got a good sense of humor and stuff, and yeah, he just seems like an interesting feller. And I believe he's from somewhere in New York, but really crazy stuff. Nice acoustic passages sometimes, nice doomy, heavier sections, as I said before, and then sometimes just speedier black metal mixed with that crazy atmosphere that you might actually hear from more like the Pacific Northwest more than the East Coast. But Black Braid, really good. If you, for some reason you haven't heard this, check it out. Really great stuff. Okay, next on the list is an album that I was not able to score yet this year, just because I actually have been buying a lot of thrash and a lot of older death metal. That's a story for a different time. This year's list is quite different than it normally would be. In years past, it would be 100% black metal, but I've been listening to a lot of death metal and a lot of thrash, so I actually was not able to pick up Psy's new album, Shiki, yet, but holy shit, what a journey. If you're not familiar with Psy, and how could you not be, but if for some reason you aren't, Psy is off-kilter, dark, sometimes weird black metal from Japan, and these days it is Mirai and his wife, Dr. Mechanibal, and I believe there's another member as well, don't quote me on that, but Mirai and his wife are making really crazy music. You know, some albums seem to have a theme. Some albums are a little bit weirder than others from the beginning, even before his wife was involved. Some albums seem to have more of a theme. Some are straight black metal. Some are weird and off-kilter as shit, like Imaginary Sonicscape. And then there's albums that are weird that are kind of in between, like Hangman's Hymn and Gallows Gallery and all that kind of crazy stuff. This album is a weird one, and weird in the best way possible. Is a lot more melancholy, doom-laden, if not mid-pace to doom-laden black metal, and man, it's got this melancholy, depressive atmosphere that is absolutely addicting, and just a great sound to come back to over and over again. I can't stop listening to it. As soon as it starts, you're like, this is a different Psy album. Like, this, it's not fast, it's not totally weird. Now, there is a weirder song near the end. I believe it's the second to last song. It sounds like something that could be on something as strange as Imaginary Sonicscape, but it's still darker than that. And for the rest of the album, there's bits of weirdness thrown in for sure, and there's definitely epic, grand majesticness with the keyboards and some of the off-kilter riffs, but really, this is like a dark doom black metal album, and I enjoy it thoroughly. I can't recommend the new Psy album enough. Shiki is just a force to be reckoned with, a truly crazy album out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting that kind of atmosphere from Psy. I'm not surprised, but it's not what I expected at all. Psy can go all over the place and still sound great as shit, from their absolute black metal to the weirdest shit stuff and the stuff in between, and then up to this doom album. It just seems like they can't do any wrong. However, you just never know what to expect. So check out the new album. If you have not checked out Shiki, definitely deserves to be in this top 10 list. Alright, moving back to frightening, scary metal, we're going with a band that I don't talk about very often at all. because I wanted to do a retrospective on this dude and his project. It's a one-man black metal project from France named Esoctrilim, but I have not done this retrospective because this guy will not stop releasing music. He is the most prolific artist that I have seen in black metal of recent years. This project has been around since 2016, and Esoctrilim since then has put out 9 albums. This is actually the 8th album. He surprised us with a new album January 3rd, which I haven't heard yet because there's just too much to catch up on. But yeah, this is his 8th album. This came out last year, one of 2 full-length albums in 2022, along with an EP and like a few singles. This guy just pumps out music. It's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And it's all quality content. Now, the thing with Esoctrilim is it can go in a few different directions. Sometimes his music is really weird, off-kilter. It's always cosmic and atmospheric, and it's always violent and crazy. However, sometimes it's a bit more keyboard-laden and very atmospheric and cosmic, and then sometimes he dials back the keyboards and that atmosphere, and he drenches it instead in absolute violence and crazy, crazy, dissonant destruction. I have no words for Esoctrilim when he gets to these kind of albums. This is more reminiscent of his 2nd and 3rd album, Inhuma, and the 3rd one is Pandemorphium. Those ones were a lot more vicious in attack and not quite as keyboard and atmosphere heavy as albums such as like Dileth or the one before it, which was Eternity of Sheog. But yeah, this one is the violence. This one still has a ton of atmosphere, but it's really just raging black metal with crazy drums. His signature fucking screams and howls and grunts and groans and sometimes chanted vocals. It's sometimes too much. It's an assault on the senses. I cannot recommend Esoctrilim enough. And the new album, Consecration of the Spiritus Flesh. Okay, moving on to a band from Switzerland that originally was a duo and now is a trio, adding in their drummer as a full-time member. This is Aura, and their newest album, Triade to Hemera. I already did a review on this, so I'm not going to say a ton, but this is atmospheric, mystical black metal in its purest form. It's crazy how catchy and well done this is, how good it sounds for how fast it is. When I put Aura on, I'm always just completely intrigued by the amount of speed that's in there. However, it's all catchy and comes together so well to make atmospheric black metal that is just unmatched. The vocals are done by a chick that is absolute fury and screechy goodness. She can scream with the best of them. Remember when Danny Filth kicked ass? Remember Hecate Enthroned? Man, this chick is absolutely up there with those screamers with some higher register, piercing, amazing vocals. And this is on top of atmospheric black metal that's played, again, very fast, amazing blasting drums, and just catchy. Somehow it's catchy. They have these moments where it almost feels like a breakdown, but it's not a breakdown at all because it's still fast as shit. And just somehow it makes the songs come together. It'll just be a blasting attack and atmosphere, and then somehow, still blasting, the atmosphere is turned up, and it's just drenched in cosmic energy, and I fucking love it. Aura, Triade to Hemera, highly, highly recommended. Go check out my review. It is a great, great album, highly deserving of being on this list. And check out that art. It's so good. Alright, moving to literally my favorite death metal band of all time, The Chasm, and their new album, The Scars of a Lost Reflective Shadow. Now, these guys were originally from Mexico, and they moved on to Chicago. They've traditionally been a three-piece, but now they are a duo, the opposite of Aura. But this is death metal the way it was supposed to be. Riffy, speedy, sometimes melancholy, mid-paced, and just drenched in fucking badass atmosphere. The Chasm is a really cool band. If you've never heard them before, and I know a lot of people haven't, it is essential. Literally my favorite death metal band of all time. And this album's really good. I have to say, though, this album starts out with an edge. This is a lot faster than most of their outputs. Most of their outputs tend to be somewhere in the mid-pace to fast, somewhere in that range, and, you know, occasional doomy moments, but really it's somewhere mid-pace fast. The first few tracks on this are just balls to the wall, fast, even a little thrash influence, just a touch of thrash influence, but in the best way possible. Very memorable, speedy riffs, and well executed. Very good guitars. When the two guitars come together, which are just played by one dude, but when the two guitars come together, they come together in such a fashion that it can sometimes be melodic and sometimes can be brutal and crushing, and no matter what, the Chasm just slays. They just slay. If I had one small complaint on this album, though, it's a complaint that I have with a lot of metal, but the bass isn't quite loud enough for me. But you can still hear it. It's there, but I wish it was a little bit louder and a little bit more pronounced. The other member in this band is Antonio Leon, the drummer, and he is just a machine, an absolute beast behind the skins, and very good tom fills, lots of amazing interludes and tomfoolery going on, and yeah, just a blaster. And when he needs to slow down the rhythm, he slows it down and makes it so goddamn interesting. His drumming is always interesting. It's always something that's, you know, not just a simple basic riff. He's always got great flourishes and, again, great fills. And yeah, the main member, Daniel Corchado, if you don't know, guitarist, vocalist, he did play with Incantation during one of their best albums, Diabolical Conquest. But Daniel Corchado's vocals are on point here, and it's nice to see an album with a ton of vocals on it, because if you don't know, their last album was all instrumental. The album before it was half instrumental, and they did say at one point they were going to be an all-instrumental band, and I'm glad they changed their mind. Their last album, though it was good, it was instrumental, and his vocals really add something. You can feel when something's not there with the Chasm. I enjoy their instrumental tracks. They've always had instrumental tracks, but when it's a full album, it did kind of throw me off a little bit, and that's actually one album I didn't purchase yet because it didn't hit me as hard without the vocals at all, and I'm so glad to see that most of this album has lyrics and vocals. And something to mention, their lyrics are great as well. So the Chasm, if you're not familiar, this is a great place to start, but really any of their albums are fantastic. Procession from the Infraworld is where I started, 1999 or 2000. Amazing album. That is the best place to start. My favorite album, but this is really up there. It's fucking great, and I haven't even had it for that long, so I really appreciate their music, and I appreciate that the Chasm possibly listen to their fans and put more vocals and lyrics in. Second to last on this list, this next album is rhythmically destructive and impressively written. We've got Inanna from Chile, Void of Unending Depths, and this is a crazy surprise. This is deep, dark, amazing death metal. Sometimes technical, sometimes destructive and crushing. Inanna is a band I had never even heard of before. I've never seen an album cover from them before. I had never heard their name before, and they are so good. This has a super nice, heavy sound to it. In fact, the bass is very prominent on this. Deep, dark vocals. They kind of remind me of Ross from Immolation, although the band does not sound like Immolation at all. I know some people kind of compare them to Immolation, but in my opinion, musically they don't sound like them, but vocally they can sound like Ross a little bit. But holy shit, this is their third album, and I've gone back and listened to the first and second albums, and they're great too, but man, they do not reach the epicness that this reaches. This is a riff mastery of goodness and blasting heavy drums. Great crushing dual guitars. What's nice about this is you get very complementary riffs to each other. You'll sometimes get heavy, palm-muted, very chunky, destructive shit, and then you'll have tremolo-picked, speedy, almost black metal riffs going alongside them, and it works incredibly well. Sometimes the guitars come together, and it's just overwhelming in power. And yeah, Inanna, what a surprise. Never heard of this band, Void of Unending Depths. Like I said, they're from Chile. If you've never heard these guys before, I wasn't sure. I didn't think this was going to make my best of the year list when I bought this album. I just bought it because I heard one song and it kind of reminded me of The Chasm just a little bit. And I was like, holy shit, and I ordered it. And then, since then, I have not been able to stop listening to it. It's so good. If you're a fan of, like, Suffocation, Immolation, Gorguts, that kind of stuff, you'll probably like this. Even The Chasm, you'll probably like this. Or even Incantation, you'll probably like this. But this doesn't sound like any of those bands. It's really its own thing, and a band I am going to keep an eye out for. Yeah, very good stuff. The last album on this list is quite possibly the best album of the year, and it came from a band I had never heard of before. I clicked on this from YouTube just based on album art and their logo alone. Their logo's amazing. The album title is cool, and everything about this album screamed, listen to me, and so I did. And I got rhythmically pounding, cosmic, yet destroying death metal that is hard to describe, but something I can't stop listening to, and it may well be my album of the year, even though I said this wasn't really in any order at all. This may be the album of the year. It's certainly the one that I've listened to the most, I think. Alter's Aesthetic Reflection from Australia is just such a crazy thing to even try to describe. If you like Mitochondrian or Antediluvian or like Gorguts or Ulcerate or any of those things kind of in between, you'd probably like Altars. I would best describe it, though, as something like Altar of Plagues meets Portal, which is nothing but the highest compliments. A wall of noise and melancholy destruction and dripping with atmosphere and weirdness, occasional bits of Oranzi Pazuzu craziness, and really well produced, amazing drumming that can take it from fast to fucking doom, and it's just amazing death metal. It's hard to describe. They're really, really good. But again, if you're fans of like Ulcerate or Gorguts or Portal or Altar of Plagues, like, you're somewhere in the right ballpark for Australia's Altars. Aesthetic Reflection, I don't know what else to say about it. Despite the fact that I've listened to this album the most out of these 10 albums, it's the hardest for me to describe. Cosmic Putrefaction was also kind of hard to describe, but man, they're really both good death metal bands. Amazing death metal bands that put out spectacular albums. But I really think Alter's new album is just, it's the pinnacle. I can't stop listening to it, and I can't wait to see what they throw out there in the death metal world for us to listen to. Should be amazing. Thank you guys very much for watching. Leave a comment down below. What do you think of my list? I know I put some weird ones in there. Some of this even surprised me when I really came down to what I was listening to the most. And I also missed a ton of albums. So do me a favor. Let me know down below, A, what you thought of my list, and B, what were your top 10 favorite albums of 2022, or even just a couple albums that I should listen to that weren't on this list. There were a lot of honorable mentions, and I will maybe do an honorable mentions video because there were a few EPs I wanted to talk about, a few albums I didn't get to talk about, and there was also a few albums from very, very late 2021 that I didn't get to talk about that I think deserve attention. So if you want to see that, let me know in the comments down below. Throw me a like. That would be amazing. And please subscribe if you want to see more content. That would be amazing. Thank you for watching this awkward list, but hopefully I got my thoughts across very well. I appreciate you guys watching. Keep it metal. God damn, fuck, did I just fuck that up? God, I might have to do that all over again. Ugh. Plus, do I have chicken shit in my fucking shit? Okay.